Well, for many victims, today's report has brought some consolation. They say they hope that Lord Leveson's recommendations are implemented. In the last hour, the mother of Madeleine McCann has said the report marks the start of a new era for the press. The family of murdered schoolgirl Millie Dowler have also spoken through their lawyer, Mark Lewis. They welcome the proposals.
They are completely listening. They have open minds to the regulations. They are ordinary people who were affected by the press. They never set out to campaign for press reform, etc. They just want to make sure that what happened to them doesn't happen again, and what happened to other people doesn't happen again.
Well, joining me now from Central London is the broadcaster Anne Diamond, and in the studio is Paul Connew, who is the former editor of the Sunday Mirror and now a media commentator. And thank you both for joining me this evening. And let's start with you. Of course, you're a witness at the Leveson inquiry, and you've also described the Murdoch papers as having a vendetta against you. Do you, like the Dowler family, welcome these recommendations?
I certainly did welcome the recommendations. I never described the Murdoch press as having a vendetta against me. That was something
well,
suggested by
someone else
Rupert Murdoch's butler, of all people. Yeah. But it certainly felt that way, and that's why I did give evidence to the Leveson inquiry, because I hoped that my case would be an illustration of the ethics and behaviour of the press where they had actually fallen down. And I think that was true, and like a great many others, I really did welcome Lord Leveson's report today. He seemed to absolutely grasp what we had wanted him to grasp. He seemed to grasp the mood of the nation. He understood that we have a very fine press. We have a very fine body of journalists in this country. And it's a tragedy that standards have been allowed to be dragged down by the worst of them. But he also did recognise that we needed to go forward with an independent watchdog body that would ultimately have teeth, and that those teeth would have to ultimately be provided by a legislative backstop. And I'm really terribly disappointed, really hurt, actually, that the first thing the Prime Minister did on commenting on the Leveson report was pour cold water on the most important part of the report.
Well, let's talk about David Cameron in a few minutes' time, but Paul, let's get your reaction first. Anne's right, isn't she? Self-regulation hasn't worked. It's now time for a watchdog with some proper teeth.
I agree about that, although I disagree totally on...
So you agree it needs to be underpinned by legislation?
No, I don't. I disagree with that firmly.
Well, then it's not proper teeth, then, is it?
No, I think there is the... I think once you get down the slippery slope of statutory underpinning of any sort, you are then talking about turning back the clock 300 years to 1695, when this country won hard-fought press freedom. I can sympathise with Anne's view, I can sympathise with the Dowler's view, and I can agree with much of Lord Leveson's report. What I can't agree with is the recommendation of any sort of statutory, basically a new law for the press. And I'm in a strange position here. I'm a hacking victim myself, wearing my PR hat. I'm, because of people I represent, I'm also a lifelong Labour supporter, and I find myself in the bizarre position of being in bed with Boris Johnson, David Cameron, Eric Pickles and Michael Gove, rather than my natural relations, as it were, with, speaking, of course, with Ed Miliband and Harriet Harman.
Well, and I mean, David Cameron's basically saying, you know, he doesn't want to see a future where MPs can have an influence on newspapers.
But that was never suggested. In that case, he didn't listen to what Lord Leveson said, because Lord Leveson spelled it out very carefully, that what he is suggesting does not amount to anything like state control of the press. It doesn't amount to anything like MPs being able to put any sort of influence on journalists. In that case, he hasn't been listening. Who he has been listening to are his friends, and we know who his friends are. Has David Cameron got it wrong, Paul?
I think he's got it. Well,
is Anne right?
He may have it wrong in terms of what happens on a parliamentary vote, and possibly, you know, he could lose this one. But I think he's basically got it right, provided that the plans put forward by Lord Black, and are in fact they don't go far enough, in my opinion. I think one needs tougher independent regulation with a tough figure like someone like Sir Alistair Graham, the former chair of the Public Standards Committee, who was a scourge of MPs at the helm, who would actually be no one's patsy, not the newspaper industry, politicians, and we're a staunch defender of the public's responsible and reasonable right to know.
And of course we know that The Sun published some pretty terrible stories about the son of your death, Sebastian. He unfortunately died from a cot death. Do you think that wouldn't have happened if these new recommendations are put into law? I think we would have had somebody to go to without the only redress you could ever go to in the olden days, and maybe even now still, are the libel laws, which frankly in this country are a laugh, because they can only be afforded by the
mega rich. And even ultimately then they don't give you proper redress. No, look, frankly, we've been through this. We've spent £7 million on the Leveson inquiry. We've had the really wise words of a judge who carefully weighed it all up and has done a terrific job. And he has spelled out for us how we can go forward, how we can provide proper redress. And the Prime Minister, for some reason, is turning his back on it.
And that's what it's all about, Paul, isn't it? The likes of Anne and other people who've had an awful experience with the press. It's protecting them in the future. That's all we should be concerned about, isn't it?
It can't be the only thing. I totally sympathise with Anne's position of what she went through 20-odd years ago over her son's death, and more recently the Dowers and the McCanns. But I think, I mean, as a hacking victim myself, although on a trivial scale compared to the Dowers.
But also as a deputy news editor.
Pardon?
But also in your past as an editor.
Yes, but I'm not now. In fact, in the industry, and I don't. For example, I don't believe you should have any serving editors involved with any future regulatory body. You need some media figures on there, but they could be media academics, ex-editors, but not on the payroll of the people that have to judge.
We have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for joining us, Paul Connew and Anne Diamond. Thank you.